I'm not sure if this is my second appearance today or not. I was busily looking for a suitable quote, and I couldn't really find one that fit the reading, so I'm going to pass with the quote of the day today because there were some good quotes, but they just didn't fit in with the reading at all. Today's reading says, "Love extends to sacred activism." And the first quote is from Bell Hooks, and we've heard from Bell Hooks quite a few times before. Love is an action, never simply a feeling. Love is an action, never simply a feeling. And someone once said that love is a verb, if I remember correctly. Democracy is a spiritual idea, and it must and will be preserved. A duty is imposed on all of us to take our part, each in their small way, toward the keeping and guarding of that freedom, without which life could have no meaning to any of us. And this is from a radio broadcast in 1950 called This Thing Called Life. This Thing Called Life. That was a part of a radio broadcast. Ernest Holmes was, according to my mentor, Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings, Ernest Holmes was a much better speaker than he was a writer. His writing tends to be involved, not always, but often it's kind of involved. But apparently as a speaker, he was extremely easy to understand, much easier to understand than when he writes. But this is about sacred activism, and Reverend Soni says, well, it emerges when love extends beyond personal comfort and into purposeful action for the well-being of all. It's not reactive or fueled by anger. It is guided by love, the spiritual principle that all beings are interconnected and all are worthy of dignity, respect, and justice. And she says, in the Science of Mind teachings, spiritual living isn't passive, it's creative. Spirit moves through us to heal our inner world and also to uplift and transform our outer world. Healthy activism arises when we act from a place of deep connection with spirit, seeing all beings as beloved expressions of the divine. She says, love calls us to care and to serve in ways that heal, restore, and unify. Today, reflect on where your love naturally moves you toward action. Maybe you stand for fairness, advocate for the marginalized, comfort the afflicted, or foster community where division once stood. Sacred activism asks each to bring more than just passion. It also asks us to bring our presence, our wisdom, and our compassion into our responses. Love keeps our heart open even through challenges. It steadies our intention and it invites solutions that uplift rather than divide. Remember that every act of kindness, every voice raised in truth, every compassionate choice is part of a larger field of transformation. Love and sacred activism together create a force for good that honors life at all levels. And I guess it's up to each of us to decide what we can contribute to the well-being and the betterment of our society. And activism comes in lots and lots of different ways. And one form of activism is actually helping feed the people. Well, I don't want to say feed the poor, feed those who have less than enough to eat. And even in this part of the world, which is a relatively rich part of the world, even in Montgomery County, which is fairly well off, there are people who go without food. And there are kids, especially during the summer, who go without food. During the school year, they get school meals, but oftentimes outside of that, they don't. It's kind of hard to believe, but it's true. So one form of activism that our spiritual center adopted was we worked with the Montgomery County Food Bank to help distribute food to people who needed it. And then Montgomery County Food Bank decided there were other ways to distribute the food, and we're no longer part of that food chain. But we do our bit in lots of other different ways. As a kid, I mentioned before, as part of the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and part of our job was to visit people who were relatively poor and help them out with energy costs mainly, and also just to sit down and visit them. Activism also means actively engaging with people who are shut-ins, for instance, people who just need your presence and don't necessarily need any money. So there's lots and lots and lots of ways. When you think of activism, you think of political activism, but that's just one small piece of the puzzle. There's activism in lots and lots of other ways. And some of us are called to do it by getting out on the streets, and some are called to work behind the scenes, and others called to contribute money. And others of us, in fact, all of us should be called to uplift the world in our prayer life. So, hey, those are my 10 cents worth. Sometime today, tomorrow, you should get a midday meditation from practitioner Danielle Johnson. And the affirmation for today says, I act with love and purpose. My actions contribute to justice, unity, and healing for all life. And my friends, that is my contribution for today. And I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully around about 5 o'clock. Right now, I see nothing in the way for that. But as I said, tune into my colleague, Reverend Lisa, sometimes. If not every day, tune into her sometimes. Because she is reading from a different source. She has a different message. She may be more loquacious than I am. And as I said, she will always remind you to value self-care, which, of course, I value too. We all ought to do that. So until next time, namaste.